Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Healthy Waves, the group podcast where we dive deep into the transformative conversations with the experts from diverse fields around the world. So, as you all know, each episode we explore the groundbreaking topics and the insights that can enrich your life and expand your understanding. So, from wellness and the personal empowerment to the cutting edge practices and the inspiring stories. So, for that, join us as we ride the waves of knowledge and discovery all together. So, tune in because we are engaging with our experts from around the globe, and we will definitely find new ways to navigate your journey to a healthier and more balanced life. So, welcome everyone to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks.
Lovely. Lovely. So, dear listeners, before we start our conversation today, because today's topic is very very great, where we'll be discussing about darkness to light and also how to navigate the high functioning depression, emotional trance states, and also about the inner healing for the lasting emotional health. But before we do that, I'll quickly love to introduce to all of our lovely guests today. So I'll start with Alicia. So dear listeners, Alicia is the beacon of intuitive healing and the personal empowerment. So with a rich 20-year background in marketing, public relations, and entrepreneurship, she now shines as a certified life and the health coach. So her philosophy centers on like holistic well-being and the transformative power of the intuition, and guiding everyone, the clients, to break free from the limiting beliefs and embrace their true potential. So, her journey through overcoming adversity and mastering life's complexities brings the profound empathy and the insights to her coaching. So, she also hosts the Intuitive Revolution podcast, where she continues to inspire and empower others on their path to the authenticity and the self discovery. So, welcome to the show, Alicia.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So on the other hand, we have Birgitta Visser. So she is a soul empowerment coach and divine channel whose light shines brightly in the realm of the spiritual guidance and the healing. So she taps into an ancient wisdom to offer the messages that help humanity awaken to its true potential. So her adventurous spirit and the diverse experiences, like from modeling to crafting, infuse her work with the creativity and the authenticity. But despite the trials she faced, her journey is a testament to the resilience and the power of embracing one's true self. So her gentle guidance illuminates the path to our authentic selves. So, encouraging all of us to live with the courage and the purpose. So, welcome to the show, Birgita.
Thank you so much for having me, Avik.
Lovely, lovely. Uh, Also, we have Tanya Eichenberg. So, dear listeners, Tanya is an energy healer and self care coach who is dedicated to helping women release the emotional baggage and rediscover their strength and the happiness. So, her unique approach to energy healing offers, uh, I mean, a fresh alternative to the conventional therapies, and which focuses on nurturing the positive energy for the profound healing. So, her personal battle with the depression and the anxiety had led her to explore the methods that brought the positive change, and now she shares her expertise to help others overcome the similar challenges that everyone is facing. So, through her webinars, the coaching, she empowers women to achieve their recovery and lead a fulfilling life. So, welcome to the show, Tanya.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. So we have Naren Tillman. So, dear listeners, Naren is a transformative leader, blending the spirituality, mindfulness, and the media expertise. So, as the pastor of one ministries in New York, he brings a reformed and accessible approach to the gospel, guiding individuals towards the holistic well-being. So he also leads the urban yogis bringing the mindfulness and yoga to uh, underserved communities, and also serve as the CEO of Principal Matters Incorporations. So, where he merged the faith based principles with the financial wisdom. So, his multifaceted expertise and inspiring message offer the practical strategies for the spiritual growth, wealth building, and the personal development. So, welcome to the show, Naran.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. Also, we have Mev Bertrand. So, dear listeners, is an emotional health mentor with a deep background in the psychology, neuroscience, and altered states of consciousness. So, the creator of Emotional Health Blueprint, uh, Mev helps individuals overcome the high functioning depression using the innovative techniques which is rooted in his own experiences and the research. So, the work integrates cognitive trance and the emotional health strategies to guide people towards the greater happiness and the self fulfillment. So, Maeve's insights into the emotional health and the personal transformation provide the valuable tools for those who are actually seeking to break free from the constraints of high functioning depression. So, welcome to the show again, Maeve.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Lovely, lovely. So it's really been an honor to have all of you all together in one screen, and it's really great having conversation on this very important and much required topic. So I'll quickly start with Alicia. So Alicia, like, if you can share how your background in marketing and the entrepreneurship influenced your approach to the life coaching and the intuitive healing, if you can share.
Yeah, so I started off, had a lot of trauma, inner child trauma was inside of me. So when I opened and launched these businesses, even if they were profitable and did well, I still was not happy and fulfilled with them. So after going through and doing a lot of work on myself, and really trying to figure out, there's still a missing, something that was missing in my life, missing. And then I introduced this term a few years ago, inner child work. I was like, oh, what is that? Sounds so interesting. So once I went down the rabbit hole with that, started going in, I was like, that is exactly what I needed. I call her little Alicia, needed to be healed. She needed to feel worthy and to feel wanted and safe and secure. And so once she started to come out and that little Alicia started to heal, my businesses started to prosper. I actually found the work-life balance and figure I wasn't really just working just for the money and working, trying to prove to the world and everything that was somebody. I was doing it for me and doing it for other people to help them heal. So that's really how I got started with doing what I'm doing now.
Lovely, lovely. Thanks for sharing this. I'll come to Brigida. Brigida, like, how does your experience with the light language healing and channeling contribute to your approach to the soul empowerment?
You're really combining the words there. I'm sorry. So, first of all, a lot of people don't, many people don't understand what light language is. They're like, well,
Yeah.
what is that? Never heard of it. And it's ancient. Yeah. It's just that we have forgotten so many healing modalities. And light language is like gerbil language, right? You're not going to understand it on a conscious level, but on a soul level, your soul understands the light coach just beautifully. And it's like, I always say, it's kind of like a shortcut to healing in a way. It's very, very powerful. And especially in the last few weeks, I've been upgrading a lot. I'm one of these weirdos where, before I go to sleep, it's like, I'll start talking light language, but it's okay. I've just got my dog. So, and the channeling, that is also part of it. And I'm like a bike courier, I'm Dutch. So it's like whoever has a message to convey to me, to humanity, to those that need to be empowered, because that's what it's all about. It's all about awakening humanity and empowering them to live their most fulfilling life, and return to that wholesomeness of themselves. And you can only do that by healing yourself. And it's not just healing, but it's also starting to live in the moment and just being in acceptance of where you're at and starting the healing process from there and just embracing it. That's just the beauty of life. And that's all about empowering our soul, right? And dancing back to the grit of ourselves rather than, dancing around with two left feet, so to speak.
Understood. Understood. Thanks for explaining this. Definitely, not everyone is aware about the light language, but thanks for explaining this. So, I'll quickly go to Tenya. So, Tenya, what drew you to the energy healing, and as an alternative to the conventional treatments for the anxiety and depression?
So 2018, 2019, my husband and I, all of our kids were graduated. We were becoming empty nesters. Life was absolutely wonderful. And for years and years and years, I had just pushed the anxiety and depression away. I put it into a box and I put it up on the shelf because I had 3 kids to take care for, a husband to help. And when none of that distraction was there anymore, they both came knocking and they were like, hey, it's our turn now. And I went the traditional routes at first. And after being on the medication for a couple of months and not having any emotion, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel happiness. I wasn't sad or anxious much, but I didn't have the good stuff either. My doctor was like, well, let's up your medication. And I was like, no, I'm done with this roller coaster. And I did a quick search because I wanted something that was going to get rid of how I was feeling. And I wanted to thrive in life. I didn't want to just survive. And I had done all the self-care stuff before, the meditation, the journaling, all of that before, but it never stuck. When I started getting into energy healing and releasing ancestral energies and trapped emotions and looking at my limiting beliefs and shifting those through energy healing, and then the attraction of offensive energies from all kinds of different things, I finally had the space to do the conscious work, which was the meditation, the journaling, learning to feel my feelings again, being able to set boundaries, because none of that stuff was taught to me because my parents didn't know how to do it. So I had to reparent myself so that I could, and God bless my children, they're all adults, but they're still learning from me, even though they're adults, that they're now learning to process their emotions and set boundaries. And so energy healing gave me that space to be able to refill things that I really needed, because I had to get rid of the negative stuff before I could really get into the positive stuff.
Yeah.
And energy healing just gave me that avenue.
Lovely. Thanks for sharing this. And uh, I'll come to Naron now. So Naron, like, how do you blend the spirituality and the mindfulness with the practical advice in your roles as a pastor, yoga instructor, and the CEO?
It was very difficult because I grew up Pentecostal. I also grew up in New York City during the crack era. So as you can see, I can't really sit still. Like everybody's talking, I'm like doing all these things. So I've had to learn. With urban yogis, we go back into communities just so that people can understand. We go into underserved communities, teaching practices to help people, to teaching practices that they would not get. Okay. There's no one came into the projects that I grew up in and taught me about yoga, mindfulness, or anything. We had church, which is why my first interaction with spirituality was through a Pentecostal church, which was high impact. Anything that you can think about a Pentecostal church, that's what we did. Ran around, yelled, screamed, all that stuff. So I started out as a Pentecostal preacher at 24 years old, fresh off the streets. And by the time I was 30, my vision, my understanding had broadened, and I got in contact with people, not zero-based thinking. I got into yoga because of a back issue, and immediately I knew that yoga was not just to exercise, although that's what it was marketed to us as, because it got me deeper into parts of myself that I've never even touched or imagined that was there. Then I got into energy healing, mindfulness, and the journey. And everyone's journey is different, but the journey, all of those roads led to where I am today. I used to separate my yogi life from my church life or my spiritual life because the two couldn't merge. My friends were like, "Oh, how can you be a pastor and believe in that stuff? Like, how can you, you know?" So, but now, because of understanding, because of knowledge, because of neuroscience, and all of the breakthroughs that are happening right now, I'm finding this beautiful um, emergence of spirituality, consciousness, energy, and movement all come together, centered from breath work. And that's what we do.
Lovely, lovely. Thanks for sharing this, Meron. So I'll come to Mev. Mev, so how did your background in the psychology and the neuroscience influenced uh, the creation of the emotional health blueprint?
Well, yeah, first, I think just to briefly say what the emotional health blueprint is. So it's a method, as you said, I think that combines psychology, knowledge of psychology, neuroscience, but also altered states of consciousness. One specific altered state of consciousness that's called cognitive trance. And really I came to this almost by chance. I was looking to heal myself, like a lot of us, and I kind of discovered this modality where you get into a state of trance where you then have access to different types of insights and healing than you would in your ordinary state of consciousness. And the first thing that happened is I was wanting to understand it. So, it's quite a mystical thing to go into trance. It comes from culture that used to practice shamanism. So it's got a strong spiritual background. Now it's being studied by psychologists and neuroscientists. But I think as a person that had studied psychology and was working with neuroscientists, although I am also a person that is a spiritual seeker, there was a lot of kind of wonder and doubt when I encountered this modality. So the first thing I did was to look into the research to try and really understand what was going on and why it was so powerful. And so that is now informing the way that I practice it and the way that I teach it. And after an experience of altered state of consciousness in the context of healing, well, most of the time it's in the context of healing, but I would say healing with a practitioner. One of the things that is very important is the integration phase. So it is the part where you have methods to bring what happened into this state of trance or into any altered state of consciousness into the awakened state of consciousness and kind of solidify it and embody it so that it can stay, the benefits can stay. And this is where some elements of psychology and also neuroscience help design the method, but also help design the specific things, the way we're going to discuss specific things to kind of really consolidate the insights, for example, that have happened. And also the type of, let's say, rituals or exercises that we will construct with, let's say, one of my clients, so that they can really bring the benefits of the trance into their daily lives.
Understood. Great. So I'll come back to Tanya. So if you can explain the importance of intent in the energy healing process, like how it influences the emotional recovery.
How our intention influences, like how it helps. Gosh, it helps tremendously. When you go into any kind of healing session, even if you're going to the doctor, if you go into that appointment thinking, oh, this isn't going to work, there's nothing that's going to help me, you're right. That's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get something that's not going to help you. Energy healing works in over the phone, it works over video, it works in person, it works over email, because energy is so expansive. But going into it going, this might actually work. Understanding that everything is energy. Our bodies are energy. Our computers that we're watching this on is energy. So why can't our emotions and the traumas that we've been through and the beliefs that we're holding on to also be energy? And so if you go into it with, I can change how I feel by releasing these trapped emotions that I've been holding on to since I was 7 years old. And you don't even realize or remember that you're holding on to those emotions, because trauma for a 7-year-old is going to be completely different for a 15-year-old, for a 20-year-old, for a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is they go, oh, yeah, I had a bad childhood, but it's not a big deal. Well, it actually was at 7 years old, it really was a big deal. And it's really something that you have to work through. And if you don't remember what's happening, that's where the energy healing that I use really comes into play, because we use muscle testing to tap into the subconscious to find these trapped emotions or these beliefs that you don't even remember you had. And you can just let them go. You don't have to revisit those traumatic events. You can just take a deep breath, send them away with love and gratitude, and be thankful that you've had that lesson with you all this time, but you've learned that lesson. It's time to let go of it.
That's really interesting. That's really the good one. And yes, I totally agree what you mentioned about people believe that what happened in the childhood, it's gone. Once happened, it's all over. But it's actually not. Definitely, it needs to be taken care of for sure. So yeah, and so I'll come to Neron also on this. Like, so Neron, like, what according to you? The impact of mindfulness and the yoga on the personal development and community building, not community building, but community well-being works. What do you think?
Well, it is community building because the whole concept of urban yogis was to build a community within a community. We targeted a specific urban area in New York, Queens, that had low food deserts, what they call food deserts here, and high crime rate. Um, Attention span was low, violence. So I separate violence from crime because violence to me is a totally different. Me growing up in a violent environment is totally different. So we wanted to build a community within that community that trained people how to find out who they are, their true authentic self. And I know that these are catchphrases that people are using now that have lost their meaning, but finding out really who they are, that I'm not, just because my dad sold drugs, I don't have to sell drugs. Just because I have a food desert doesn't mean that I have to buy into the food system. But we train our youth and young adults how to look at the desert and find what can be fruitful in that desert. But then also movement. How can we move to help relieve some of the stories that we've hidden in our bodies? Because trauma hides in the body, hides in the subconscious. So for us, we use movement first before we can get a youth or young adult in those environments who have compounded negative bias. The music is negative, the television is negative, the environment is negative, the neighbors are negative. That we live in high-rise buildings, everybody thinks the same, walks the same, dressed the same way, right? So how can we now tap deep into the negative bias, beyond the negative bias, beyond all this compounded negative bias, and have them to really draw community and look at one another as brother and sister, not as enemy. So that aspect of community, but then also, how can I be self-sufficient? That's when it becomes individual, because if you don't want to go with me on this journey, my journey now belongs to me. and everyone is not meant for this journey. But if we don't give those seeds, if we don't try to plant a seed, then no one would not even realize. And we all know, and this is the last thing, we all know that these practices are very expensive. So that no one's going out saying, hey guys, I talk to people all the time, they got programs $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, 6-week courses, right? So these are underserved communities that can benefit from the same things that we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. So while we were discussing on the community building, thanks for correcting me. It's community building definitely, and so I'll come to Alicia. Like we often hear this big word, limiting beliefs. Uh, what do you think are some of the common limiting beliefs that you encounter in your clients, and how do you help them to overcome that?
Yeah. So the most common limiting belief always comes down to they don't have any self-worth or they don't feel safe. And so, well, if we don't feel like we have any worth in anything, then we're going to make excuses for it. And I go back to, training the inner child. I love like Tanya's doing a lot of that with energy healing and stuff too. Is if we don't start working on that inner child, and a lot of our limiting beliefs are coming from that. They're coming from what we've been told when we're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes into teenage years. If we don't tie that back into it and get to the root of it, then those limiting beliefs are just basically still going to continue to arise up within us. We can sit and tell ourselves all the time that, oh, I'm almost like I'm happy, joy, the cartoonish. You could be like that, but it's not, again, kind of authentic, but it's not really felt inside of you. In order to feel it inside of you, you have to start releasing some of these things. If it's through energy work, if it's through meditation, if it's through different modalities, doing that inner child work, getting to the root of the cause of why you're starting to feel this way and what's coming up for you. Limiting beliefs it's kind of a common term, and people say, well, I don't have any limiting beliefs. Everybody has some sort of limiting beliefs, or else we would just be on this complete high all the time and living, floating like Superman everywhere. but we're human, so we do have some limiting beliefs. But it's like just a journey to start peeling the layers off and getting rid of some of these limiting beliefs, and that's what I work with my clients with. But we get back to the root of it as kind of where did it come from, and why do you think it's still true?
Any example you were remembering right now? I mean, if you can, if any example you were getting now.
Common limiting belief is let's see. I'll say a common limiting belief with business. So I've worked with those business owners is I cannot get to the next level because I'm doing this service. Like I'm in marketing. I can never make $10 million. Or I'm a school teacher and I can never make this amount of money. That's still a limiting belief because there are other ways that you can get around that. And a lot of times it comes back to their parents told them they needed to be a teacher for something solid, but you're never going to make enough money. Or maybe their parents didn't encourage that. So it comes down to, or maybe so many different things that come up. And a lot of times with business owners, it's the financial limitations they put on themselves. And again, it goes back to self-worth.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing this. Yeah. So I'll come to Mev. So Mev, like, what according to you are some of the common signs of high functioning depression? Like, if you can share any.
Yeah, the typical, basically, well, actually, the first thing I'm going to say about high functioning depression is it's not a clinical diagnosis. It's not something that psychologists would diagnose people with. It is something that people identify with. And they don't necessarily always identify with the term high functioning depression, but they will identify with the signs and symptoms. And the signs and symptoms are in the name. It is the polarity between the high functioning part and the depression. So it's almost like there's a stark contrast between what's happening externally in somebody's life and what's happening internally in somebody's inner world and feelings. And usually, in high functioning depression, what's happening is that the external part is the high functioning part. how things are looking like, how somebody is performing in their daily life. So typically you would have somebody that has a great career, and or somebody who has a large circle of friends with whom they're always the upbeat, happy, caring, giving friend. Somebody, lots of people have a family, they want to be the super mom, the super dad. So, and they manage to do that. That's the important part. So in these aspects of their life, they are functioning very highly. And the contrast is with how they're actually feeling. So if they're a superstar at work, they're not feeling like they're rocking it. They're feeling extremely overwhelmed. There's anxiety often as well in there. They might be feeling like they just can't cope. They will feel like they can't talk to anybody about this, because if the people at work only knew how they truly felt, then they wouldn't be the rock star anymore. And similarly with the group of friends, they might be feeling extremely low. They might not be feeling like they have a lot of self-worth. They might certainly not be feeling like they really belong, but they will never tell that, because they're going to feel like if I mention that, then my friends are not going to want to hang out with me as much anymore. And then similarly with the family, they might again be feeling super overwhelmed, super low, like there's not much point, not necessarily as in kind of wanting to end your life, but having this kind of almost intellectual existential struggle with like, what's the point of it? But they're not going to talk about that, certainly not with their kids, and often not necessarily with their partner. And so that's what it really is. It's this kind of real polarity between how well they seem to be functioning, but actually how unwell they truly are inside.
Understood. Understood. Thanks for sharing this. I'll come to Brigitte. It's very important to travel as well. I mean, you have traveled extensively, right? So, and explored a lot of places, and the various roles also. So, how have these experiences of yours shaped your understanding for the personal and the spiritual growth? If you can share.
I've moved more times than my age, and I'm 50, and I'm not done yet. I'm really a wanderer, a seeker. I kind of live outside the box, so to speak, and I'm still seeking. Life is all about progressing and developing, yeah. So I mean, I've oh gosh, I mean, I've learned so much everywhere that I've lived. I've had so many experiences. I've struggled. I've studied so many healing modalities and put them into practice, and I'm still searching. But my experiences and my struggles, that's what inspires people. That's all about empowering people. And I think can I just come back to what you asked, Tanya, by the way? Because we were talking about intent, and I'm one of these freaky people, right? It's like everything is in the wording. So if you split the word intent up, you get in and tent. And tent is like your mind, or it's like your house, right? The body. So you have to travel inwards into your own home of soul, yeah, and do the work. That's how I see it. It's the same thing. It's just in the wording. But Avik, what did you want me to elaborate on?
So basically, it's all about happy things. So you traveled a lot, you experienced a lot. So how that thing that your experiences, because so for me, but I also believe, like, I love to travel as well. So somehow I feel like when I travel, I feel something from my inner self, like, yes, that is something which I wanted to, or maybe something. But for you, how it actually helped you, or maybe shaped your spiritual development or spiritual growth, understanding. So how it's all related to the travel. So if you can explain.
Well, that's got to do with trauma. So every time I went somewhere, it was like, well, I was just going to go after this guy. It was not like, hey, Brigitte, why don't you work on the relationship with yourself? Why don't you have a little bit more self-love? No, it was like, oh my gosh, I got on a plane for someone, even if they rejected me. I was young then, but that's how I learned. I really, really learned. And as you know, I've been to India as well, and I really learned the art of breath work. And it is really, as Naran said, it's really important. Breath work is really important. And I still do. Well, I don't do the Sudarshan Kriya from the Art of Living, but I do my meditation and the breath work, because what we don't realize, and it's so important, is many people shallow breathe. So they walk in shallow puddles, they walk on the surface of themselves rather than going deep within and really breathing deep and oxygenating their whole body. But as several people said, we've got trauma stored inside our body. And with breath work, a lot does come out besides energy healing or whatever modality you choose. There is no right or wrong way. If there's one thing that I have learned, it's that I'm not a push me over anymore. I think that I was an eternal doormat, because what often happens is that we do not want to hurt other people. Yeah, we people please. And what happens to us is that we end up hurting ourselves. We're in pain. And so that was something that I really, really had to learn. And through many healing modalities, I was able to release a lot, but especially with light language. It's just so, so beautiful. I got rid of a lot of pain, a lot of layers, a lot of past life trauma, trauma in this life as well. So that's what worked for me. But as I say, everyone's spirit is different, and you just have to do what aligns with your spirit. And I think that's important. My next thing will be ayahuasca.
Oh, so good.
Did you do it?
I've done it 4 times.
Oh, really? I've done combo like 3 times. So.
I've done combo. I did combo right after an ayahuasca ceremony last year, and I would not recommend doing them both in the same day. But I was go big or go home, because I had to fly home from Florida. So I was like, I'm not coming back.
Awesome.
I did Purim. Purim is drink till you can't remember. But I think that's what the Jews
Okay. So, okay. So, I'll quickly ask Alicia. So, what according to you are the intuition matter or play for the coaching practice, and also how will you guide the individuals to tap into their own intuition for the personal growth?
Their intuition?
Yeah, intuition.
Yeah. So we all have intuition, but we all block it in multiple ways. And so I really teach them that they actually have this gift inside themselves. I do energy healing. I do all breath work, all the stuff too. But everybody has this inside of themselves. You can get all these attunements and all this stuff going on, but we're naturally light beings, and we're naturally intuitive beings when we're brought into the world. So it's tying that back to them, and again, tying it back to when you're small. How curious were you? How did you just kind of intuitively know where to go, what to do? We all kind of did. But when society gets in the way and starts telling us how we're supposed to be, we're not supposed to listen to your intuition. You can't trust yourself. Like, we live in such a society that's told that we don't trust ourselves. We trust other people's opinions. Yeah. So I teach them to get out of that and to get back into themselves, and to get to know who they are, and to know and to start baby stepping into trusting themselves and trusting their decisions and everything that they're doing. And once they start that process, they start opening up, and they're like, wow, I can really do this. So it's building a lot of self-confidence inside themselves to be able to intuitively do that with whatever. And then they start seeing the things that come through, like energy healing, coming through, the spirituality and things in their life that just starts to blow their mind. And so they really start to truly believe that there's something outside of them that's really guiding them throughout their path, outside of society and their parents and everybody else, whatever body's told them. So they just sit down and sit within themselves through meditation or through wherever, and just really get connected to God's source, wherever you want to call the divine being out there. They get connected to that. That's intuitively guiding them, and it's a cool process to see it.
Lovely, lovely. Thanks for sharing this. So I'll come to Naron. Like, what according to you are some of the uh, measures or maybe actionable steps that individuals can take to uh, integrate the spiritual principles for their daily life for the holistic growth?
Just start. Um, we made everything so complex. We
Yeah,
sell
and
everything.
sorry to cut
Yeah,
you, but I believe the word which you mentioned, start, it's very important because somehow we want to, but we never do that.
yeah, yeah. So when I was coming to church, they would say stuff like, "Oh, if you take one step, God will take two steps." But then people just don't know where to take that step, and then they were like, "Oh," people would say, "I'm gonna come, but I just gotta fix myself first." Like there's no fixing ourselves. Even we're up here as experts, but we're all broken and we're all still practicing. I think the one thing that I always say, I work in senior citizens facility, and the difference between working with youth, depending on their age, teenagers is just you got to bribe them to get on the map. Youth, they can just about do anything. Then at one point they stop doing anything. But seniors, they've lost their sense of imagination. So the moment I say, "Hey, lift up your right hand," like, "Oh, I can't." I'm like, so the first thing I said, there's no "I can't" in our space. So once we remove the "I can't," then I have to remove the "I want," because want is a low vibrational desire. I want to be better. No, if you want to be better, then perceive to be better. So everything starts within the mind. That's it. The starting point is not in the mat. The starting point is not in the bank account. The starting point is not in the new client. The starting point is in the mind. If I'm defeated here, which I was for many, many years, then I can't be a victor out there. And until I can get you to transform your mind and see yourself whole, oh, the doctor said I got cancer. All right, but then how do you see yourself? And until we can get people to see themselves first. So I do a lot of mind work first before we even do a lot of. If you tell me, "Oh man, I can't lift my arm," oh, the doctor said this. So if I can get you to do this, I can get you to do this. Because it all starts here. So when people come in, and from our communities, people come in with the "I can't," they said, he said mentality. So just start. Just start. Just sit down in front of somebody. Sit down in front of one of us and start.
Lovely. That's a great thing, I'd say. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this. Yeah. And so I'll come to Mev. So, uh, how do you believe that cognitive trance and the altered states of consciousness uh, contribute to the emotional healing? So,
Hmm.
Yes, it's funny because when Aaron was talking, I was like, yes, well, there's a couple of ways, and I'll talk about it neurologically and psychologically, but part of what it does is it gets you into a state where your patterns of the way you respond emotionally and the way you think are not as fixed. And so then they're a bit more malleable, and this is the part where people can start shifting how they think and feel. So neurologically, from what we know from the research, what's happening when people are get into cognitive trance is that the right hemisphere of the brain becomes a little bit more prominent. This is something that's very different from the normal awakened state of consciousness, where it's the left hemisphere of the brain that tends to dominate and tends to kind of take over in terms of the content that we are even able to conceptualize to ourselves and others. The reason for that is that a lot of our emotional processing, a lot of our holistic processing and understanding of things is happening in the right hemisphere of the brain. However, our language capability, well, let's say for most people, because when you're left-handed, it's the other way around, but for most people, the left hemisphere of the brain is solely responsible for language. So when people want to conceptualize something, either to talk about it with somebody else or even to themselves, to ourselves, we think and we use words. Thoughts is word or are words, and so what needs to happen is the content that's in the right hemisphere of the brain travels, so to speak, to the left hemisphere of the brain, gets transformed, turned into, processed into language, and through that translation and the process, some of the content gets lost. And there's research that show that have shown actually since a long, long time that there's kind of a loss of content, a loss of things that we therefore just can't express to even to ourselves. That's the worst part, really. And so we don't know. There's a bunch of things that we don't even know about ourselves. So to go into trance, and it goes back a lot to what everybody else was saying, to kind of, Alicia, you were talking about intuition, to how to access it. Well, that's, there's a billion ways, but one of them is also to get into a trance state where you're going to get access to different information. You're it's still you or your psyche. It also can be your spirit. The concepts of what these states are, they're defined differently depending on the paradigm with which you approach them. But the point is that you get access to something that you give yourself. And that is, different insights, different things that you experience that you can then bring back to the awakened state of consciousness and then process them. So that's one thing. And the other thing that the brain seems to be doing is it's emitting different types of brain waves, some of them that are associated with healing and neuroplasticity. And so back to what I was talking about, so it seems like this state is kind of helping people loosen up, so to speak, some of their thoughts and emotion patterns. And this is from the neuro research, but this is also quite consistent with what's being reported, from people, from my clients, through qualitative research. So that's, what's really interesting about the potential of cognitive trance for healing.
Lovely. Thanks, Meb, for sharing this. And so I'll quickly come to Tanya. What Meb was mentioning about it's totally connected with the emotional and the healing. So, what do you think are uh, some of the common misconceptions? I mean, or maybe you have encountered any misconceptions about the energy healing, because it's all interconnected, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the misconceptions are that it's going to happen very quickly. Not all energy healing is going to happen overnight. I'll have clients that come to me for 1 or 2 sessions and they're like, "Oh, this isn't working." And then I'll have clients that work with me for 6 weeks and they're like, I can't believe how far I've come in 6 weeks. And what it does is, what energy healing, it opens up the space for you to be able to do more of the human work that we're here to do. And that takes time. I mean, we have the clock, we have the calendar, there's human time, and time is sometimes irrelevant, but it still takes time to shift things and for things to heal, because we are physical beings. The other misconception is that it's bad, is that it's all negative. And yes, we might be releasing some negative stuff, but we can bring in some really good stuff too. We can bring in that love from the divine, that universal love that is, once you feel that universal love, you're like, oh, I never knew that this is what love could actually feel like. And it can be very euphoric for the first time. And you never want to let it go. So find a modality that works for you. There are so many different ones out there. And there is going to be one that will work for everybody. What I use may not work for somebody, but what Alicia does or Naran does, it might. So do your research, try new things, and find something that's going to work for you, because you can thrive. You don't just have to survive, but it may take time for you to find that one thing that's going to help you to thrive.
Exactly true. Very true. Yeah. So I'll come to Birgitta. what advice would you have for the people who are looking to uh, navigate the struggles, and also at the same time wanted to uncover their true selves?
I think that's pretty much been covered, right? It's when we go through an experience, when we go through trauma, pain, we can either remain very stagnant, remain in our victimhood, but when we get very exasperated, eventually we're going to start searching. Yeah. Because our backs are against the wall. And sometimes we really have to I always say it's hit rock bottom. I always say hit the bottom of that rock. And once you realize that you're struggling, that is like an epiphany. I mean, it takes courage to look at ourselves. And I think that's the most important thing. You realize that you're struggling and, do whatever, like I said, do whatever aligns with your spirit. Seek out, if you want to speak to a friend, a family, that's fine. If you want to go for counseling, if you want to do anything holistic, then do that. But as I always say to people, don't remain as you are. Yeah. We're meant to, the key to living our lives, and we're often being lived because society has been created. It's like this artificial paradigm, and we're taught to live a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. And that's why so many people are suffering, because they're not aligned within their bodies. And so they're very much at a dis-ease within themselves. And who gives them monkeys what people think of you, right? That's not important. But what's important is what you think of yourself and how you feel about yourself. And it's really returning to our inner, returning to our inner world and listening, as I always say, to the whispers of our souls. And as Naron said, everything springs from the mind, because what we don't understand is how powerful our mind is. Everything starts there. And I think once people commence to understand that, that's a huge step. But we're all, as I said, we're all teachers here. We're all reflections of one another. We're all here to walk each other back home to the love of ourselves. And I remember growing up in the 80s, life was very different. People lived more from a heart-centered space. And that's, changed so much. It's like people have lost their way. And it's all about loving ourselves. And that is the hardest concept of all. I mean, what does loving yourself even mean? Yeah. My dad, he always, and God rest his soul, he died in 1988. But he always used to tell me and my sister, well, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself. I'm like, what? I'm a kid. But I do understand that concept now. I really, really do. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, because personally, I'm still a work in progress and I'm still shedding layers. And that's just the beauty of life.
Yeah. That's very right. I really love that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this, everyone. And so before we wrap, just it's for the listeners. I mean,
Can I can I
like
just
if you
say
can
one?
share.
Can I just
Yeah,
say
yeah,
one
please,
thing? I'm just real quickly.
please.
I think that we have to keep in mind, everyone who's listening, that in all of this stuff that we're talking about, because when Tanya talked about time, resistance will come, because the old self is going to rise up, and it's going to fight really, really hard to keep you from transforming. So don't feel bad. Get up and start over. That's it.
Keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's really great. And the same thing I was about to ask only, like, so because all of your experts, and so one strategy, or maybe one practice that if you would like to share with the listeners today, so that uh, from today onwards they can start their journey of the healing and also reconnecting with their authentic selves. So what that would be?
You're worth spending your time on. Invest your time, invest your love. You are worth it. We are our first job when we come into this world. And that old saying, you can't fill someone else's cup unless yours is full. It's true. You have to fill yours first. If you have to get up a half an hour early before the kids get up a half an hour early, but fill your cup first before you start filling others.
Lovely, lovely. So
I would say, if you haven't before, maybe start considering that there is a lot of wisdom within your negative emotions and your painful emotions. And so, just be rest assured that they're there to tell you something, and maybe start just asking yourself the question, what is this emotion might be trying to tell me?
I'd say practice gratitude with yourself. What are you grateful about yourself? 3 things every day.
lovely.
We all have the same 24 hours and 7 days. So don't look at nobody else's 24 hours, 7 days. Pay attention to your own.
So here's one. We often say, why is this happening to me? Yeah, that's victim mode. You ask yourself, why is this happening for me? Why is this experience triggering me? Why is this person triggering me? What is it that I can learn from this? Yeah, and that's shifting that perspective. And if you want to listen to some really good meditations, by the way, because I've shifted a little bit, listen to on YouTube Whispers of the Wild. It's amazing. And they're pretty long, but you just plug in your earphones, boom, and lie back and just listen to the guided meditations.
Lovely, lovely. That's really great. So thank you everyone for sharing your expert advice, and I believe definitely listeners gonna resonate with it. So thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of Healthy Waves. I believe it's really fruitful today, and we have explored the profound insights on navigating the high functioning depression, emotional transstasis, and the power of inner healing with our incredible guest today, dear listeners. So I hope that all of you, dear listeners, have been able to resonate on with this, and uh, also the discussion has provided you the valuable tools for your own journey towards healing and the self-discovery. So and uh, last but not least, I'd love to mention, like, every step that you take towards understanding yourself better is definitely a step that towards for more fulfilling and the empowered life. So uh, keep in mind, and also, like, if you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to subscribe to Healthy Waves and stay tuned for more episodes filled with the expert insights and inspiring stories from around the globe. So until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep thriving. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.